time for the best coverage of the top stories in sport. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chad Erickson, this manic Monday. Good to have you all with us for the next 60 minutes. Lots to do. Jason Cole will swing by. NFL Hall of Fame, I should say Pro Football Hall of Fame selector, NFL author, historian of the game. We'll get his thoughts on some of what we saw this weekend and some of the big questions coming out of Wild Card Weekend, including a big one about Mike Tomlin that we'll get to as well. Also talk some college football. Bill Bender's usually with us on Mondays. He won't be here today. He had a personal matter to tend to. We'll have him later in the week, but we will talk about the college football playoff semifinals that we saw late last week, and now the matchup that has been consummated for the national championship game. Odds and ends, a costly slide, and a whole bunch more. But we start things out in the NFL. And there is Sam Yarnell, ladies and gentlemen, to hang out with us as he is just about every day on this show. All right, Sam. Boy, was it a beaut between Washington and Tampa Bay. We thought it'd be one of the best games of the weekend. It certainly was. It did not disappoint. And look, we say it time and time again. If you put the ball in Jaden Daniels' hands late in a game, in a close game, you do so at your own peril. And you could also say the same for Baker Mayfield. If you put the ball in his hands late in a game, you put the game in peril. And you saw what makes Baker Mayfield great and what also drives you nuts about him, all in this eventual Commanders win. And look, I thought Tampa Bay would figure out a way to win this game. I think a lot of people thought that while Jaden Daniels and this Commanders team time is coming, it had not yet come, or it wouldn't come in this game. And they get the kick late to win it. If you didn't hear it, here's how it sounded from Bram Weinstein and the team calling the game on Commanders radio. This is a fun one.
Gonzalez looking to send Washington into the divisional round. Snap good, hold down, kick on its way. It is good! The Cardiac Commanders are the Clutch Commanders! They do it again! We'll see you in Detroit!
And Jay Gonzalez kicks in the door and kicks us into the second round of the playoffs!
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. And hey, hats off to the Commanders. They're on their way to the next round of the playoffs, so.
Yeah, so when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have lost games this year, it's always kind of been in the same way, and it was the same kind of in this game. They always have a chance to win it late, and they always blow it. If you remember back to the primetime game they played 4 weeks ago, I want to say against the Falcons, the game ended the exact same way. Buccaneers had a chance, didn't convert it. Falcons got the ball, walked right down the field. And I think the Buccaneers had a chance to clinch the NFC South in that game, if I'm not mistaken. Bottom line, the Commanders are definitely here to stay in terms of this NFC playoffs. They're going to be a challenge for any team that has to face them. And they proved that last night. Jaden Daniels, it truly is remarkable because we'll see quarterbacks come flash onto the scene pretty quickly and look all right. Jaden Daniels is a dynamic playmaker in that Commanders offense. And, you know, credit to Cliff Kingsbury. I know there was a lull there for a little bit in how he was calling games for the Commanders, but he's really pulled it together late in the season. And Jason Page, I am scared of the Washington Commanders on the NFC side of the playoffs. I think they've got a real shot at breaking some hearts in this playoffs.
Well, it's kind of funny. As much as we talked about Denver going into this game in Buffalo and how a lot of people talked about Denver, young team, playing with house money, super confident, what are they going to be able to do? Bo Nix on the road, all of that. As much as people wanted to talk about that, we don't really talk about it as much with Washington, which is a team that nobody had expectations outside of you, maybe. Nobody had expectations of this team being a playoff team, and now here they are. They find themselves there. Look, hats off to Washington, and again, it's fun. We get another week of Jaden Daniels in the playoffs. That is always a good thing. Green Bay and Philadelphia, Sam, I mean, look, what else is there to say? Injuries decimated this Green Bay team. That is not why they lost this game, though. Let's be honest about it. I think it's a piece of the puzzle, but I think part of the puzzle is also Jordan Love's decision-making with the football in his hands. I mean, there's no getting around it. He's trying to put balls in spots where he doesn't have to. He's trying to make the hero play every play, and that's a big part of the equation when you talk about the future of this Packers team and whether or not you can win a Super Bowl with Jordan Love is his decision-making with the football.
I do think, though, Jason, that that's a double-edged sword because he was forced into making some really tough decisions when you're throwing the ball to Chris Brooks, Malik Heath, and Bo Melton. Like, that will naturally force you into some tougher decisions. And yes, you come away with 3 picks. Listen, there is a huge contingent of the media out there that want to say, coming off of this game is proving the Philadelphia Eagles are the best defense remaining in the playoffs. What are we doing here? They just beat the 3rd and 4th string team for a team that almost came in 4th place in their division, right? They had to hold off the Chicago Bears for the first full half of the season. But all of a sudden, beating a kid in his 2nd year in the NFL as a starter is going to make this team a solidified best defense in the playoffs? What are we talking about? The Eagles still, and showed you in this game, have copious, massive, glaring, gaping, obvious holes throughout this defense, but throughout this team. And quite frankly, I do not trust them to go far in this NFC playoffs. I think it was a great season they had. Nick Sirianni continues to be a dominant regular season coach. But the fact of the matter is, Jason, this game did nothing to convince me that Philadelphia is going to go deep in these NFC playoffs.
I think that pass rush is dangerous. And with what remains in the NFC and obviously, what they're going to have to run through, I do think they've still got a shot to be there. I think they're still the toughest match or matchup with Detroit when we get there. I'll hold over Buffalo. We'll do them to start the next segment because I don't want to give short shrift to what we saw in Buffalo yesterday with the Broncos and the Bills. And for all of us out there who thought this would be a close game, I thought Buffalo would win, but I thought it would be a closer game than what we saw. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. I'm kind of interested. This Philadelphia thing is fascinating because people will watch it and say they're not playing. They still don't look like the team we think they could be, yet they just keep winning. They just keep winning football games. And maybe we just have to accept that this is this team and this is how they're going to win these football games. I don't know. We'll come back. We'll talk some more about Buffalo and Denver, the Saturday slate of games, the results we saw there as well. Don't go anywhere. Rolling along on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. College football playoff coming up in 10 minutes. National championship game is set. We'll talk about that. But we continue the NFL conversation, Sam Yarnell, and for everybody who thought just maybe Denver could pull off a miracle in Buffalo, that was quickly extinguished. I could see your true heartache for our friends in Denver watching the show. Look, here's my takeaway watching this game and what I see. And again, this is eyeball stuff. I'm not going to get into fancy stats and all that. You can go look at the numbers. It was domination from Buffalo in this game. I watch quarterbacks when the postseason lights come on, and it can change them. It can speed things up. It can make them do things that they aren't typically doing or aren't even capable of doing that they then try to do. When I watch Josh Allen, and I know there's a lot to focus on in this game, but on the Josh Allen point, when I watch him now versus 2 or 3 years ago, what I see is a guy who stays true to himself in how he's playing the game. And to me, that's what I need to see when I'm talking about a championship quarterback potentially. Now, look, they may not win a championship. If they don't win a championship, I find it hard to believe that it's going to be because of Josh Allen. Based on what I have now seen over 18 games, 17, he only played a snap in the final game of the season, whatever. But over the time I've seen him this season, I am convinced if they don't win a Super Bowl, it's not going to be because of Josh Allen at this point, Sam Yarnell.
So here are Josh Allen's stats in 11 postseason games, just to your point about quarterbacks really turning on the lights when the playoffs start, right? So 11 postseason games in Josh Allen's career, 264 of 404, that's 65% completions, 2,995 yards, 23 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's good for a 102.3 passer rating, 609 rush yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns as well. Josh Allen's a dominant quarterback in the playoffs. And I would argue, Jason, that every time that the Bills have lost, even throughout his career in the playoffs, it's never been Josh Allen's fault. It's almost always been coaching's fault. That said, this game, the Bills are the team that played this weekend, the one that showed you that anyone, anytime, anywhere, they can dominate them. Not saying they will, but they can. They are the team in the NFL that, when playing at their best, is better than anyone, and they've shown you that this season. A lot of the talk this year around the Bills has been about the offense and how in games that they lose, the defense can't keep up. The Denver Broncos ran 10 snaps in Bills territory yesterday. The entire game, 10 snaps on the other side of the 50-yard line. You're going to look at me and tell me that the Bills defense isn't dominant? I'm going to look right back at you and say the Bills defense is better than the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll stand on that. Because the fact of the matter is, the Bills have gotten it working in all 3 phases this year, and they finally got all of their all-pro level talents back healthy. The Bills are the best defense in the playoffs, and they're the only team that played this weekend that can dominate anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Well, that narrative you've created will certainly be tested with what they face in the divisional playoff round, which we'll get to in just a couple seconds to talk about who they're facing in just a couple of seconds. First, I got to talk about my friends over at Credit Associates. Who do you think is going to be the Super Bowl MVP this year? Josh Allen certainly threw his hat in the ring yesterday with his performance. Lamar Jackson, who we'll get to, certainly in that conversation. Well, what if you could be the MVP of your finances? With Credit Associates, you certainly can. They'll help you settle your credit card debt for up to half of what you owe. They're calling it halfuary. That's like scoring a game-winning touchdown for your wallet. So take the first step towards financial glory. Call 1-800-747-5362 today. Credit Associates, because every MVP needs a winning team. To see if you qualify for debt relief, call 1-800-747-5362 or visit creditassociates.com or just click that QR code right down there. Sam, the Buffalo Bills will be tested. They will be tested by, again, one of the most complete teams when they are on their game in football in this Baltimore Ravens team, and we saw it over the weekend. I don't know how much of what we saw, and I'm not trying to take anything away from what Baltimore did. I don't want to try and figure out and dissect what percentage of this was how great Baltimore is versus how badly this Steelers thing fell apart over the final several weeks of the season, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the regular season. And there's calls out there about Mike Tomlin, and we'll talk about that with Jason Cole. But as it relates to this game, it seemed like Baltimore was able to do just about anything they wanted on the offensive end. I think at one point they ran 12 or 13 runs in a row, just stuffed it down the throat, broke the spirit of this Pittsburgh Steelers team, and move on in convincing fashion.
Yeah, and Jason, over the next months, you and I are going to go back and forth on the Mike Tomlin job thing, and I will be honest with you, I can't take a firm position right now. One, because it's just too soon after the end of the season, and I don't have the capability of looking at the entire outlook, right? And two, because in this game, they kept running the Steelers kept running the ball to just no avail. They averaged 2.6 yards a carry as a team as a team. That's impossibly hard to do. You have to like be trying to be that bad. Russell Wilson threw the ball all over the yard in this game, which is one of the more underrated narratives. And I think that this Baltimore secondary, as much as we've prided them all season, let a quite frankly over the hill below average quarterback come in and tear their secondary to shreds. It didn't matter again because the Pittsburgh defense, as worn down as they are, could not handle having Derrick Henry run up the middle every single play. And then you get into the read option with Lamar Jackson, who again completed 16 passes in this game. They can run it all over the place, right? And Pittsburgh, for whatever reason, wasn't comfortable selling out against the run, again, of a quarterback who completed like 65% of his passes. Russell Wilson, I think, was always an interesting decision for this team. And you and I kind of talked about it throughout the season, right? And how the Vikings looked like the biggest frauds out there. But, oh, what about the Steelers? And who have the Steelers really beaten? And as the season wore on, you're exactly right. They had that, 3-game losing streak heading into the playoffs?
I think, yeah.
And then lose another on top of that, right? So extending it. It's just anti-Tomlin, Jason. They've gotten away from the Pittsburgh Steelers brand.
I wanna call an audible. I'm gonna move some things around. I want to come back because I want to talk about the Texans and Chargers, and I also want to look ahead a little bit to this Ravens matchup with the Bills coming up next weekend. We're coming right back. All right, Jason Page calling audibles today. That's me. We were going to do the college football here. We'll push that back a little later in the show. I promise we'll get into the Notre Dame, Ohio State matchup for the national championship. It's next week anyway. So we got plenty of time. Plus, Bill Bender will join us later this week to talk about it from the sporting news. But we will get to that a little later in the show because we do have to talk about Ohio State's win against Texas. But, Sam, I want to continue the conversation on the NFL. And again, I didn't want to give short shrift to another game from the playoff tilt this weekend or from the playoff schedule. And that being what the Texans did to the Los Angeles Chargers. And I called it on this show late last week. The Chargers were the popular pick. They were one of the glam picks for this weekend. And the Houston Texans, I mean, give credit where credit is due. They came out and laid a whooping on Jim Harbaugh's team. And it's one of those games where it left a lot of people asking questions about Justin Herbert and a lot of people saying, hey, if you're going to talk about, the playoff failings of these quarterbacks, how do we not talk about them in the case of Justin Herbert? And there are a lot of people asking questions such as, is he the guy to take this franchise to the promised land? By the way, you could do this with a lot of quarterbacks in the league, guys that have gotten paid, that you could have this conversation with. There's a guy in Jacksonville by the name of Trevor Lawrence that we've certainly asked those questions about. But now people are asking that about Justin Herbert. What was your top line takeaway from what we saw in Houston on Saturday?
Jim Harbaugh can take just about any team and make them look good for a 17-game stretch. I mean, credit to him as a coach because, wow, that Chargers team is a lot worse than we ever thought they were. No, I'm so serious, though, Jason. Like, Quentin Johnston is really bad. Like, horrible. That running game is not strong, right? And this actually kind of goes against Harbaugh, but the Joe Alt pick is looking more and more like a bust. The offensive line cannot hold it together, seemingly. And now your franchise quarterback can't complete even close to half of his passes and throws, more than 10% of them to the other team. What are we doing here? This is a bad situation developing in LA, especially when you got the Rams in the other building about to play tonight, but still also in the playoffs. That makes everything a little bit more tense in that whole kind of melting pot that is LA football. I am worried about the Chargers, Jason Page. It is like Ladd McConkey is about the only talent they have right now. It might be a blow it up and rebuild around a wide receiver kind of situation in LA.
2 playoff games for Justin Herbert now. A 52% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and obviously an 0-2 mark. When you look at what he's done in his career, both those games on the road. I do think it's a little early to kind of cast asunder, what he's done outside of Ladd McConkey. What does he have to work with there from an offensive standpoint? He is constantly on his ass. He is constantly getting attacked in that backfield. They have struggled to protect him from day one that he's gotten into the league. So there are some things they have to do to obviously help him succeed. And I anticipate they'll work on that in the offseason. All right, move away from that because while I could talk about the Texans all day, I want to look ahead to next weekend and what we're going to get in this matchup between Baltimore and Buffalo. And what we've seen between these two teams. There's obviously the conversation as it relates to the MVP between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and looking at both of these quarterbacks. Sam, here's the question I would ask: why would I expect anything different than what we saw the last time these two teams played?
Because Buffalo watched that game, right? And you saw other teams as that regular season went on try to beat Buffalo the same way that Baltimore did, and it didn't work.
Because they don't have what Baltimore has.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that when you're talking about a team like the Lions, or even a team like the Rams, actually, because for a large contingent of that game, the Rams' entire game plan was run it with Kyron Williams as much as we can. I almost said Kyron Lacey there. Ooh, that's a different story. Run it with Kyron Williams as much as we can and see what happens. And they realized after about a quarter, all right, Matt Stafford's going to have to throw the ball. The Bills in this game are going to have to sell out against the run. That is the only way that you're going to be able to beat this Baltimore team. Because, again, and we talked about it last segment, Lamar Jackson just showed you that he's not capable of throwing the ball right now, right? He cannot create a dynamic passing offense without Zay Flowers out wide, right? He's completing just a little bit over 50% of his passes for 175 yards in that game. The running game is what Baltimore's entire offense is based around. So you sell out against the run, force him to throw it, and quite frankly, I trust the Bills DBs a whole lot more than I trust the Ravens wide receivers without Zay Flowers.
Here's the one thing though. You could sell out against the run, and they could still beat you with the run. Because they've got two guys, and they have that option. And sometimes Lamar Jackson can hang on to it. How many times did we see, defenders flying across following Derrick Henry only to watch Lamar Jackson say, I'm just going to hold on to it, and I'm going to run around this way. It is so difficult. I mean, look, they ran it 13 times in a row. Denver, they literally said to Denver, hey, we're running the football. And the Broncos still couldn't stop it. The mark of, and I always say this with baseball, the greatest base stealers were the guys you knew were going to run every time, and you still couldn't throw them out. The Baltimore Ravens are literally going to say, here's what we're going to do, and you're not going to stop it. And then occasionally, when you've literally put every asset up there to try and stop the run, they're going to run some sort of play action and try and find one of their receivers. There is an outside chance, by the way, next weekend, Zay Flowers plays. I think this is a close game. I think the spread is indicative of that with the Ravens -1. Buffalo. It's Buffalo -1.5 right now. It
flipped already. Yeah. It opened Buffalo. Now it's Baltimore.
Right. It's gone back and forth. So it's Buffalo -1.5 is what I got on FanDuel right now.
That's crazy. ESPN Bet has Baltimore -1.
Yes. And I saw that this morning when I was getting ready to do the show. 51.5 is your total. I think the safest bet is the over. Because, I think it's over. I think it's over. I don't think either of these teams are going to be able to stop each other. I don't. I think it's going to be a last team holding the football sort of situation. And where I think it's interesting, and we're out of time.
I love the Bills if that's the case.
Yeah, I do too. We're coming back. More Sports Wrap. All right. After moving some things around in this show, we have arrived at Jason Cole. Does a great job on all things NFL, Pro Football Hall of Fame selector author. Shut up, your kid is not that great. It's right behind me. Nobody can see it.
You got to move it into a better place. You got to put it instead of that Page jersey. Put it
put it in the frame.
Jersey.
Put it in the frame. Put it right there. I like it. I like it. It's one of many books. If I had more books of yours, I'd put some of the more prolific ones. Instead, we have the coffee table book.
I'm not even sure it qualifies for a coffee table, but
come on, a bathroom book.
Oh, bathroom.
All right. Look, a lot to get into with you here on a couple of big topics. One, Steelers lose this weekend, and the Mike Tomlin conversation has been most prevalent on this Monday morning, with people saying, all right, is it time, 8 straight playoff losses, is it time for Mike Tomlin to go? My answer to these things always usually is, all right, who are you replacing him with that's going to be better? But sometimes, does there just need to be a change for the sake of change?
Not in that organization, because they built that the coach actually is meaningful and the coach has authority. And you only do that by maintaining who the coach is for long stretches of time, so that the coach has power in the locker room and power with the players. One of the reasons that guys like Cowher and Knoll and Tomlin have been effective in dealing with players and maintaining cohesion is that those guys actually matter. In most organizations, the coach doesn't matter. He's fungible. Okay. And owners fall prey to that all the time. But the Steelers figured out a long, long time ago, after doing that for 35 years, after going through coaches like underwear, and not having any results at all, and being horrible. I mean, people don't understand the Steelers. The history of the Steelers before 1970 is they're the worst organization in the NFL. All right, made the playoffs once, had like 2 or 3 winning seasons in 35 years, and then they said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to find coaches who match our style, what we want to do, and we're going to leave them in place so that they have authority." Now, it gets a little different if somebody offers you something in trade for Tomlin and wants to go get him, then okay, it's a little different. But you don't just fire coaches. They go out on their own. Knoll went out on his own. Cowher went on his own. Maybe you have to convince Tomlin to go out on his own at some point in time. But you don't fire him. Like, that's just not a reasonable thing for the Steelers. And the other thing about the Steelers is, realize what you are. You don't have a quarterback. Okay, you don't. And your only Super Bowl eras, the only time you've ever won Super Bowls is you had Bradshaw and you had Roethlisberger. And you of all teams should understand, you need a franchise quarterback, and you need to go get that guy somehow, some way, especially now when you've got Herbert and Burrow and Mahomes and Jackson and who am I missing?
Trevor
Allen.
Lawrence. Yeah.
Right. Well, Trevor's not in that conversation right now, but he has that ability. But you got 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the AFC that you got to climb over. They may not win much for the next 10 years until they solve the quarterback situation.
Do you think that means going to Justin Fields next season, or is it taking another spin of the free agent wheel? Spin the wheel, see which veteran free agent is it Kirk Cousins? What are you doing?
There's no simple answer in this one. The crop of quarterbacks in the draft is not that good. I talked to a scout I respect a lot yesterday. He said, Shedeur Sanders is a 2nd-round pick. He's going to get drafted in the 1st round. Ward is a 3rd-round pick. He's going to get drafted in the 1st round. And there are going to be 2 others who go in the 1st round who are not even close to those 2 guys. So that's just the nature of what's going to happen. I don't know that there is a great one in this draft. Maybe you can pick one out. I haven't seen it from the little that I've watched of college football. But you've got to find one. And I think it may be 2 years away. And you're going to have to dummy it up for another year or maybe even 2 years before you find who that next guy is. Maybe you're getting Arch Manning somewhere down the line. You're angling to do that.
Mike Vrabel gets hired as head coach of the New England Patriots, and it looks like, everything that's sort of the way it played out after Bill Belichick left winds up working out just a year later.
Yeah, they got... they gave Mayo a chance. Mayo sort of lost his mind under the pressure. I was listening to Dominic Foxworth talk about it, and Dominic made a great point about how when you listen to the messaging from Mayo, it was inconsistent and not the kind of messaging you want for your team. And that's the real important part of being a coach / CEO today in today's world. The messaging has to be consistent. So he wasn't defending Mayo at all from that perspective. And that told me a lot. For him as an ex-player and a talking head, he understands these situations. So I would say that Vrabel was obvious. Vrabel gives them a link to their culture that they want, that Mayo didn't have the gravitas yet, didn't have the experience yet to bring back. Vrabel does. He's practiced at it. He's ready for it. They have a quarterback who's ready to go. This is their logical turn back to what they were. And hopefully it works. I like Vrabel a lot. I think he did a heck of a job in Tennessee with odd resources and an odd owner. But in this case, you have an owner who really wants to win and is dedicated to doing everything possible to win.
Jason Cole. He is the author of Shut Up, Your Kid Is Not That Great, in addition to many other books. He has
a Relentless Life.
There you go. See? Hall of Fame selector as well. Go and check out his books. Just go on Amazon and search for Jason Cole. Thank you, my friend.
Anytime. We'll talk.
All right, rolling along on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Thanks to Jason Cole for hanging out on the show. Odds and Ends wraps it up in about 10 minutes. We moved some things around in the show today. So instead of something to consider, which we would typically do here, I want to do some college football because we would be remiss if we did not discuss the fact that we have a consummation, if you will, of the national championship game, which will be next Monday, obviously between Notre Dame and Ohio State. And I'm going to say something, Sam, and what I'm about to say may surprise you. I think that Notre Dame-Ohio State game is going to be closer than a lot of other people think. I do not believe this is going to be a blowout. I think this will actually be I actually think this will be a competitive football game. I think Ohio State wins. If they don't, I think it would be, I don't know if I'd say monumental upset, but it would be a surprise to me if they didn't win. But I think if Notre Dame has shown us one thing throughout this postseason, and really throughout the season, because remember, this is a team that had no margin for error after losing to Eastern Illinois or whatever it was earlier in the year. Yeah, the College of Nuns. Whatever.
Northern Illinois University,
Illinois.
The Huskies, who had a great season this year, and credit to Northern Illinois.
Are they the Salukis? Is Northern Illinois the Salukis? What is that?
That's Southern Illinois.
All right,
that's
so
Southern Illinois.
It's all Illinois. Apologies to our friends in Illinois, but I mean, come on. Notre Dame had no margin for error this year, and their backs were literally against the wall. And they wound up in the national championship game. If after that loss against one of the Illinois, you thought Notre Dame was going to be in a national championship game, I would have had you urinating into a cup. And now here they are against an Ohio State team who I think all the pressure's on them. I think this thing is shifted now. Whereas last week I was talking about who needed it more between Penn State and Notre Dame, and we had that conversation both with Bill Bender and with you and I. I think all the pressure in this game is on Ohio State, Sam.
I don't disagree with that. The pressure is on Ohio State because Ohio State is far and away the better football team. Like Ohio State is, quite frankly, in my mind, like we're watching a lot of NFL players play in that Ohio State starting 22 right now. Yeah. Right? So, yeah, I don't disagree with you. I totally think that there's more pressure on them, especially because of, like, the outlook, right? Like, all these guys want to perform because these are the games where you truly move your draft stock the most. That said, Ohio State's going to feel more pressure, but I think that they're also much more akin to dealing with pressure. for a variety of reasons, right? The simple ones being they're in a conference. Notre Dame's not. Ohio State objectively plays a harder schedule every year than Notre Dame does just because of Big Ten environments that they're thrust into for more than half the season. This is a team that knows pressure like the back of their hand, frankly, and has already collapsed to it once in the Michigan game, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago at this point. So they've seen the bad side of pressure, and to me, I just think that they know how to deal with it more. Listen, Notre Dame is getting bet, though. Like, the public agrees with you strongly. They opened 9.5 dogs. Now they're down to 8 dogs. I like Ohio State. I'll be alting Ohio State into the next dimension. I don't know.
On FanDuel right now, 57% of the money on the spread is on Notre Dame, and 56% of the bets on the spread are on Notre Dame. Again, that's early. As you always like to point out, the sharp money won't come in until late in a lot of cases, so we obviously have time to see sort of how that plays out. I want to talk more about Notre Dame because there is an interesting situation that is starting to pop up. And it's something I talked about on the show really over the last couple of weeks. We'll get to that coming up here in just a couple of minutes. Got to talk about my friends over at Credit Associates, though. What a game last night. Did you see Jalen Brunson? He had 44 last night for the Knicks. Him and Karl Anthony Towns combining for over 70 in a Knicks mauling of the Bucks. Whew. He simply did it all, just like Jalen Brunson. Taking it to the rim. If your credit card's been blocking you at the rim from financial freedom, it's time to break through. Credit Associates can help you slam down your debt for up to half of what you owe. It's the kind of move you want to see in your financial game. Don't wait another quarter. Call 1-800-747-5362 today. See how much you can save during Halfuary. Credit Associates, when it's time to make a play, they got your back. To see if you qualify for debt relief, call 1-800-747-5362 or visit creditassociates.com today, or just click the link below. The Chicago Bears want an interview with Marcus Freeman, Sam. Who on this show said a couple of weeks ago that Marcus Freeman could be a guy that winds up in the NFL? Here's the thing. If you're leaving Notre Dame, is it for the Chicago Bears? Is it for that job where, you've got to go in, you get the quarterback you get, and maybe Marcus Freeman likes Caleb Williams? I don't really know. You're stuck with a GM that's already there, a regime that's already in place, and the expectations of Bears fans, which probably right now are pretty low considering everything that's happened with that organization. Are you leaving Notre Dame for Chicago if you're Marcus Freeman, Sam?
Well, Jason, you'll remember the day after the Michigan-Ohio State game, or I guess the Monday after, I came on this very show and talked to you about how, hey, if Ryan Day, and Bill Bender for that matter, hey, if Ryan Day gets fired, Marcus Freeman's an Ohio State grad, an Ohio State football alum who's really hot in the coaching world right now. Maybe Marcus Freeman will go to Ohio State. Yeah, he'll go to the NFL. If I thought he was going to go to Ohio State, I definitely think he's going to go to the NFL.
I think the lesson from all of this, by the way, is something I also talked about last week. David Shaw. NFL teams came calling for David Shaw, and then that phone got real cold when things went bad, as they sometimes do in a cyclical college football world. We're coming back with odds and ends next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this Monday Sports Wrap. A reminder, if you miss anything from the show, go check out the podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, you name it, we are on all of them. Got some exciting news coming up soon. I can't spoil it just yet, but some really cool Sports Wrap news is coming down the pike. I'll let you know about that as soon as I can. All right, Sammy Arnell, without any further delays, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. The end probably for a lot of people who broke their TVs and threw stuff through their TVs on Sunday. Why? Because Saquon Barkley decided to slide. Yep, you're looking at the highlights right here. Saquon Barkley could have broke one off and made a lot of people a lot of money. Instead, he made the Bucks a lot of money, Sam. What did he come, a yard and a half short of what he needed? Or the any touchdown bet. That's what it was. The any touchdown bet is he had green grass ahead of him, but he did the unselfish thing and decided to slide.
Yeah, so this Philadelphia Eagles team, I talked about it earlier in the show, go back to right now. They're just a not serious football team. It's a 2-score game. You have a chance to make a two-score game, a 3-score game, and you're not taking it. Okay, Nick Sirianni, you go do your thing. You enjoy wherever you are employed next, because it's not going to be Philadelphia. Listen, I was on a 100-1 ticket. Josh Allen to lead the day in passing. Saquon Barkley to lead the day in rushing, Terry McLaurin to lead the day in receiving. Barkley finishes a yard short of James Cook, who finished with 120.
There you go.
Barkley finishes with 119. Terry McLaurin finished 3 yards short of Mike Evans. Evans finished with 92. McLaurin finished with 89, I believe. So, yeah, that was a 100-1 ticket that would have cashed in one day that would have felt really good. But, again, Philadelphia, unserious football team.
The any touchdown bet on Saquon Barkley, if I'm not mistaken, was the most heavily bet thing in the entire weekend. I mean, there are
like plus
hold
money,
on. Let me look out my window here in Vegas. Oh, I think another casino just popped up. Down the street. Thanks to all of you that bet on Saquon Barkley. And look, you know what, man? If you want people to talk about things being fixed, things being rigged, there are probably so many people right now that are like, sports has to be rigged. It's got to be fixed. It's fixed for the books. This is why they build casinos here in Las Vegas. Odds and ends, the last time in all likelihood, Marc-Andre Fleury will appear in Las Vegas. Last night, honored by the Las Vegas Golden Knights organization for everything he did for them, including helping them win a Stanley Cup with this ridiculous save. That was part of the Las Vegas Golden Knights and part of their history and part of their story. They honored him last night here in Las Vegas. That was very cool. Hats off to the Golden Knights. Yes.
Yeah, kind of weird, right? And those of you in the hockey world understand Flowers, a guy who we remember for his greatness in Pittsburgh, right? And in my mind, he's going into the Hockey Hall of Fame as a Pittsburgh Penguin. So it was kind of weird to see another team have this entire tribute night, especially an expansion team, which is why I think it made so many headlines, Jason.
Novak Djokovic. Carlos Alcaraz, winners in their first round matches at the Australian Open. Let's hope they both hang around long enough to play each other in the quarterfinals, which is where they would meet as this tournament continues to progress. Nishesh Basavaredi, 19-year-old Indian phenom, actually took the first set from Djokovic, but he goes on to win the next 3, wins it in 4. Andy Murray now his coach, by the way. If you want to watch something fun throughout this tournament, watch Andy Murray, who literally is like 5 days older than Novak Djokovic, coaching Novak Djokovic after he just retired.
I'm interested to go back and look now because I know I've seen it recently at some point last season. Novak's record after he drops the first set is insane.
Ridiculous. Yes.
And for a while, people had not caught on to that in the betting worlds, and it was like a free bet because Novak would pretty regularly lose a first set, and they'd offer him around plus money to win the match. The books have finally caught up to it. After he won this first set, he was minus 285 to win the match.
Last but not least, Vikings and Rams tonight. Glendale, Arizona. Essentially a neutral site game between these two teams. It'll be very interesting to see what the atmosphere is like. Sam Yarnell, what are you pointing to? What do you got for me here?
I'm pointing to the over, Jason Page,
like
because
over?
that is what I will be betting. We've got a fast track out there in Arizona. And let me tell you, Brian Flores' defenses have not looked the same recently. These are two teams that have got offenses that are capable of scoring tons and tons of points, and we've got ourselves a low total at 47.5. I love the over in this game.
The Rams have been one of my glam picks in this postseason. They are a team I would not put anything past. I thought they were just as capable of missing the postseason as they are winding up in a Super Bowl. 2.5 going the Rams' way, plus 124 on the money line. I love both of them. 47.5, as Sam mentioned, is the total, and I would agree with you. I like the total in that game as well. Very be fun. I'll be interested to see what the atmosphere is like in that stadium tonight. given what has transpired. I haven't looked and seen what ticket sales are like and all of that. And I know the Rams are flying a bunch of their employees and things like that out there and trying to do some things to help some people. Is again, everybody is keeping good thoughts for everybody affected by these devastating wildfires out there in California. They're going to have a rough couple of days here on Tuesday and Wednesday with those Santa Ana winds. All the best to our friends in California. Yes, Sam?
Get in the door price, $176.
Wow. It's pretty cheap for an NFL playoff game. Maybe I'll drive down to Phoenix. It's going to do it for us. Thanks to Jason Cole. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. We're all back here tomorrow. We will recap the wild card game and more then. See ya.